Hi, welcome friends. Today my topic of discussion is the poem Strange Meeting by Wilfred Owen. Let's start with some facts about Wilfred Owen, the poet. Owen was an English poet and soldier. Born in 1893 and died in 1918 at 25. He was one of the leading poets of the First World War. His war poetry on the horrors of trenches and gas warfare was much influenced by his mentor, Siegfried Sassoon. He stood in contrast to the public perception of war at the time. He was an opposite to the confidently patriotic verse, written by earlier war poets, like Rupert Brooke. He was an anti-war poet. Next, Owen considered joining the French army but joined the British Army in 1915. In 1915, he was enlisted in the Artists' Rifles. Wilfred Owen was invalided out of the army in 1916, suffering from shell shock. Recuperating in an Edinburgh hospital, Wilfred Owen became close friends with poet Siegfried Sassoon. Sassoon played a key role in encouraging the young war poet. In 1917 he moved to Western Front, at Somme sector. Owen was diagnosed with neurasthenia or shell shock, and sent to Craiglockhart War Hospital in Edinburgh for treatment. Here he met fellow patient, a fellow poet Siegfried Sassoon. Owen saw it as his duty to add his voice to that of Sassoon, that the horrific realities of the war might continue to be told. Owen wrote in his first letter to Sassoon after leaving Craiglockhart, "You have fixed my life, however short." Sassoon wrote that he took an instinctive liking to him. Sassoon introduces him to Robert Graves. He meets Arnold Bennett and H. G. Wells, both of whom knew him, believed that Owen was homosexual. Through Sassoon, Owen was introduced to a sophisticated homosexual literary circle, which included Oscar Wilde's friend, Robbie Ross, writer and poet Osbert Sitwell, and Scottish writer C. K. Scott Moncrieff, the translator of Marcel Proust. While in Ripon, he composed or revised a number of poems, including Futility and Strange Meeting. Owen never saw his own work published other than to magazines. Only 5 poems were published in his lifetime: Futility, Anthem for Doomed Youth, Dulls et Decorum Estate, Strange Meeting, and The Parable of the Old Men and the Young. Owen is the creator of para-rhyme. Owen was to take both Sassoon's gritty realism and his own romantic notions, and create a poetic synthesis that was both potent and sympathetic, as summarized by his famous phrase, "The pity of war." Wilfred Owen was killed in action in France during World War I. The inscription on the stone is taken from Owen's preface to his poems, "My subject is war, and the pity of war. The poetry is in the pity." On 11th November 1985, Owen was one of 16 great war poets commemorated on a slate stone, unveiled in Westminster Abbey's Poets' Corner. Now see some works of Owen. 1914, Anthem for Doomed Youth. Arms and the Boy. Asleep. The sentry dulls at decorum estate, exposure, futility, greater love, insensibility, inspection, mental cases. The parable of the old man and the young, the send-off, soldier's dream, spring offensive, strange meeting, the kind ghosts, the last laugh. Friends, now let's see some key facts about the poem, Strange Meeting. Strange Meeting is a poem by Wilfred Owen that deals with the atrocities of World War I. Next, the poem was written sometime in 1918 and was published in 1919 after Owen's death. Next, poem was composed in War Hospital in Edinburgh at the insistence of Siegfried Sassoon in 1918. Next, published by Siegfried Sassoon in 1921 in the poetry collection, Poems by Wilfred Owen, with an introduction by Siegfried Sassoon. Next, the poem, Strange Meeting, suggests that war is brutal and senseless. The poem is narrated by a soldier who goes to the underworld to escape the hell of the battlefield, and there, he meets the enemy soldier he killed the day before. Next, brave German soldier is speaking to young English poet soldier. Both the soldiers act as the alter ego of the poet. Next, it is the dramatic meeting between two dead soldiers. On earth, they were enemy to each other. Next, the use of the word strange in the title, Strange Meeting, suggests that the encounter between the speaker and the soldier is unusual and unfamiliar. Now, see the form. Strange Meeting is written in 44 lines, in 4 stanzas. 14 lines are spoken by the poet soldier, and 30 lines by the German dead soldier. Now, see the rhyme. The entire poem is written in slant-rhymed couplets. Slant rhyme is also known as pararhyme or half rhyme. Now see what pararhyme is. It sits somewhere between full rhyme and no rhyme. Pararhyme is partial rhyme between words with the same pattern of consonants but different vowels. Words have similar consonants before and after unlike vowels. Example: bestirred, stared, eyes, bless, hall hell, years yours, groined groan, here, are, here. Next, see. Meter of this poem. Irregular iambic pentameter in heroic couplets. Next, rhyme scheme. A B B C C D D E E. Point of view, first person narrative. Friends, it is actually an anti-war poem. Conversation in the poem is going on in hell. Next, tone, melancholic, mournful, pessimistic and bleak tone. Friends, overall mood of Strange Meeting is hopelessness, despair, and futility. Next, the encounter between the speaker and the soldier can be seen as a metaphor for reconciliation and forgiveness. Now, see some symbols in Strange Meeting. The tunnel, The tunnel symbolized the transition between life and death. Blood. Blood refers to violence and damage done by war. The dead soldier. The dead soldier represents the consequences of war and the loss of human life. Citadels. Citadels symbolize defensive architecture. The landscape. The desolate and ruined landscape symbolize the devastation caused by war. Next. Chariot wheels. Chariot wheels symbolize the machines and tools that people use to make war. Blood, that clogs their wheels, symbolize the violence and destruction that such instruments cause. Time. The twin concept of time refers to the blending of past and present, and the cyclical nature of war. Next. Sweet wells or water. It refers to the truths that lie too deep for taint. Enemy soldier desires to wash the blood from chariot wheels, using truths that lie too deep for taint, truths that he draws up from sweet wells. He is going to use truth itself to clear away the legacy of violence. The enemy soldier imagines that truth comes from some place deep in the earth, that it is life-giving like the water, that it is without taint, not poisoned. For the enemy soldier, truth is not relative, it is permanent and powerful. It can erase the effects of violence. Next, see, who are the speakers. There are 2 speakers, for the price of 1. The first speaker is rumored to be based on Owen himself. He is a recently fallen soldier, who ends up in this strange place. The second speaker is the soldier, who was killed by the first speaker. Second speaker rants on and on, about the destructive and evil qualities of war. Speaker number 2 is Owen's main vessel, to deliver his own thoughts and opinions on war. Setting. This poem takes place in hell. At the start, it creates a dreamlike setting. The soundtrack of the descent into hell is allusion to Dante's Inferno. Let's see. Themes of the strange meeting: warfare, pity of war, fear, compassion and forgiveness, guilt and blame, suffering, reconciliation and solidarity, futility of war. Next, see. Main ideas of the strange meeting. It deals with the atrocities of World War I. The poem is narrated by a soldier who goes to the underworld to escape the hell of the battlefield, and there he meets the enemy soldier he killed the day before. It doesn't focus on heroic deeds or grand victories. Instead, the poem treats war as horrifying, wasteful, and dehumanizing. In the words of the enemy soldier, it presents the pity of war distilled. Now, title. Why is the meeting called Strange Meeting? Or, justify the title, Strange Meeting. The title Strange Meeting is taken from P.B. Shelley's 12-stanza poem, Revolt of Islam, 1818. The meeting takes place when the battle was still in full swing, and both the soldiers were dead. The meeting is strange, because the poet meets his enemy. I am the enemy you killed, my friend. The speaker of Strange Meeting is a dead soldier. In Hell, he meets an enemy, whom he killed the previous day. It is a subterranean meeting of a soldier and the enemy he killed. Next, let's see the text summary of the poem, Strange Meeting. The narrator starts like this. It seemed like I escaped from battle, down into a very deep dark tunnel, a tunnel that had been carved out of the granite bedrock by some enormous wars in the past. Even in the tunnel, I found people mourning and suffering. They were either too deeply asleep to be stirred, or they were already dead. Then, as I poked and prodded them, one of the sleepers jumped up and stared at me. He seemed to recognize me, and he pitied me. He lifted his hands sadly, as if he were going to bless me. And I could tell from his lifeless smile that the dark hall in which we stood was hell itself. You could see all the fear etched into his face, even though none of the blood or violence from the battle up above reached the hall where we stood. You couldn't hear the artillery firing down there. The guns didn't make the chimneys in the hall groan. I said to him, "Unfamiliar friend, there's no reason to be sad down here." He replied, "No reason, except for all the years I'm missing out on, and the loss of hope. You and I had the same hopes. I threw myself into seeking the most beautiful thing in the world, and I'm not talking about physical beauty. This beauty makes fun of time as it steadily passes by. If this beauty is sad, its sadness is so much richer than the sadness you find down here. If I hadn't died, my happiness might have made a lot of other people happy, Jew. And even in my sadness, I would have left something important behind, something that can't survive down here. I'm talking about truth itself, the truth that no one talks about, the horror of war boiled down to its horrifying essence. Since I didn't get to tell people how horrible war is, people will be happy with the destructive things our armies have done. Or, they'll be unhappy, and they'll get so angry that they'll keep fighting and killing each other. They will be as fast as tigers. No one will speak out or disagree with their governments, even though those governments are moving society away from progress rather than towards it. I was full of courage and mystery. I was full of wisdom and expertise. I won't have to watch the world as it moves backwards, marching into cities that foolishly don't have fortifications. If the wheels of their armored vehicles were to get clogged with blood, I would go wash them with water from pure wells. I would wash them with truths too profoundly true to be corrupted. I would do everything I possibly could to help, except for fighting, except for taking part in more horrible war. In war, even those who aren't physically hurt suffer from mental trauma. I am the enemy soldier you killed, my friend. I recognized you in the dark. You frowned when you saw me in just the same way as you frowned yesterday, when you killed me with your bayonet. I tried to fend you off, but my hands were slow and clumsy. Let's rest now. Now see the overall summary of Strange Meeting. The poem has concepts of suffering, loss of innocence, remorse, forgiveness, and the shared humanity that cuts across enemy lines. The poet's anti-war message challenges the glorification of war and emphasizes the need for compassion and peace. Strange Meeting is a poem about reconciliation. Two soldiers meet up, in an imagined hell, the first having killed the second in battle. Their dialogue is one of the most poignant in modern war poetry. Wilfred Owen fought and died in World War I, being fatally wounded just a week before the war ended, in May 1918. By all accounts he wanted to return to the front line, despite suffering from shell shock, to justify his art. It does not matter which side the speaker or the soul he encounters fought for. They are both presented equally as victims of pointless bloodshed. "I know I shall be killed," he told his brother, "but it's the only place I can make my protest from." Owen disliked the gentle and sentimental poetry that gave a distorted view of the war. He wrote many poems depicting the horror and helplessness. He wanted to capture the pity in his poetry. The majority of the poem is a dialogue between the two soldiers, enemies in war. The two become reconciliated in the end. Religious allusions play a part, due. So, biblical influences are to the fore. In certain parts of A Letter from Owen to a Friend in 1917, shows a little of what the poet was thinking. Christ is literally in no man's land. There, men often hear his voice, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for a friend." Is it spoken in English only and French? I do not believe so. Thus you see how pure Christianity will not fit in with pure patriotism. Owen's poem contains a message of love and forgiveness. It was written at a time when hate and loathing were at their height, when a war on an unimaginable scale took the lives of millions of young men and women. There is no chivalry or honor, which the traditional poets found in war. Strange Meeting is one of Wilfred Owen's most famous and most enigmatic poems. It was published in 1919 in Edith Sitwell's anthology, Wheels, an anthology of verse. Owen was very much torn in his faith, but couldn't escape a strict religious upbringing. So, biblical influences are to the poem's description of a soldier's descent into hell. In Strange Meeting, God doesn't seem to have much to do with hell. Hell is a creation and consequence of human violence. The enemy soldier is commonly assumed to be more than just a dead German boy. He is actually the speaker's doppelganger, a manifestation of another version of himself. Critics have referred to the dead soldier as the speaker's primal self or unconscious form. In fact, it is a poem of visionary dream. Sacrificing life for the sake of others is a noble act, but the glorification of war is both abstract and unworthy. The theme of universal goodwill, which Owen has been persistently advocating, seems reserved for the world of death, where enemies become friends and engage in a discussion of their problems with an open mind. The poem underlines the theme of insensibility also. It is paradoxical that the sense of goodwill does not exist where it is most needed, and exists where it is not needed.